One of the things that I did back in the day to try to roll the great Dharma wheel was to participate in and provide some leadership for what we called at the time the Wider Shin Buddhist Fellowship. This was before the pervasiveness of the internet or social media. Certainly YouTube wasn't in existence. But it consisted of a group of us converts who appreciated the perspective of Shin Buddhism and had faith in the primal vow of Amida Buddha. And one of the things that happened to me that was very fortuitous, for which I'll always be grateful, is the fact that Reverend Tsuji of the Ikoji Buddhist Temple, who was the former bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America, he took interest in us folks in the hinterlands, in the boondocks, so to speak, who came to realize our own limitations and the benefits of reliance upon other power in the form of Amida Buddha. In any case, through his generosity and through his encouragement and support in cultivating folks such as myself, in my particular case, he offered me an opportunity to go to a national Buddhist Churches of America conference in Fresno, California, and there I gave a report on the Wider Shin Buddhist Fellowship. I'll read to you now that report, which was presented in Fresno in February 1992. I was introduced with the anticipation that I was going to speak about a Jodo Shinshu group called the Wider Shin Buddhist Fellowship. This fellowship is a grassroots outreach effort. John, myself, is 43 years old. I was 43 at the time. He has a doctoral degree in psychology, and he works as a unit director at a psychiatric hospital in North Carolina. So now I'll recite what I spoke to that group about. I entered the field of psychology searching for truth about my own inner nature. During my search, it was my extraordinary good fortune to discover the Buddha Dharma. I shall always be profoundly grateful for my good fortune, especially for my discovery of Shinran's teachings. Shinran, the founder of our Jodo Shinshu sect, is my mentor and guide. He is the one who has most clearly reflected my own religious experience. To me, Shinran expresses the teaching true and pure. His writings are, for me, the pinnacle of Buddhist doctrinal development. I know that I have many negative attributes, and that on my own I am incapable of achieving enlightenment in this life. Nevertheless, I am fully convinced that Amida Buddha embraces me just as I am, and that I will be reborn in his pure land when I die. Then my sorrows will be over, and I will be free to fulfill the paramita ideals of Maitreya and Samantabhadra, relieving suffering throughout the 10 quarters. Even though Amida asks nothing in return for his unconditional loving embrace, I believe American Shin Buddhists like myself have an important mission to fulfill. We must carry the word of Amida's primal vow to those who have not heard his name. We must do so to the best of our ability in grateful response to Amida's endowment of Shinjin. Surely, if there is an infinitely compassionate Buddha, as I believe there is, he would want all humanity to be aware of the simple and straightforward promise contained in his vow. This is the basis for our fellowship's outreach activities. This is the reason the Wider Shin Buddhist Fellowship exists. We repeat and praise his name for the gift of faith he has given to us. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Some Americans cannot relate to the Judeo-Christian tradition. A perfect example is Alan of Ashland, Pennsylvania. Alan detests the concept of God and was floundering to find a framework of meaning for his life when he discovered Amida's vow. Now, Alan says, quote, "Through Jodo Shinshu, I feel that I have been able to solidify my dealings with my addictions and my problems in coming to terms with my illness. Sure, I still have my ups and downs, but I feel stronger now. It's that the vow is so embracing. It's that Amida, for me alone, created this vow to be my savior." Close quote. The Wider Shin Buddhist Fellowship reaches out to people like Alan. We currently have 24 individuals on our mailing list. Our spiritual advisor is Reverend Tsuchi. Members reside in California, Virginia, New York, New Mexico, Missouri, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Texas, Michigan, North Carolina, and Wisconsin, as well as Australia, Western Europe, Japan, the Dominican Republic, and the former Soviet Union. We have started in a modest way in terms of numbers and resources, but we have an upbeat spirit, as exemplified by Stan, who lives in rural upstate New York. During an early phase of the establishment of our Wider Shin Buddhist Fellowship, Stan told us, quote, "Let's do it. If what is to be done is undertaken with a clear intention to bring the light of Amida to others, then regardless of where things go, or what is organized, or what is published, or what happens, it will be good." Close quote. As time went on, we stated our purpose as follows. The mission of the Wider Shin Buddhist Fellowship is to reflect Amida's compassionate love and universal individual acceptance in the world. More specifically, our objectives are to propagate the Buddhist teachings of Shinran in the West, and to provide geographically separated, interested persons with a supportive network of friends to stimulate the growth of their faith and spiritual activity. We are, in effect, a, quote, temple without walls, which facilitates each individual WSBF member's ability to put the Nembutsu life into action wherever he or she may reside. Fulfilling this mission is clearly a difficult and challenging task, particularly since we must rely almost exclusively upon long-distance communications. My fondest hope is that the WSBF will, nevertheless, maintain its momentum into the future. A reason for optimism is that there have been informal letter exchanges for over 3 years, with a newsletter called Sangha emerging 1 year ago. More recently, in the fall of 1991, the WSBF became formally affiliated with the Ekoji Buddhist Sangha of Richmond, Virginia, which itself is an offshoot of the Ekoji Buddhist Temple in Springfield, Virginia. At present, the WSBF is being proposed by Reverend Tsuji for consideration by the National Council of the Buddhist Churches of America to be designated as an independent BCA fellowship. Designation as a BCA fellowship would make our continued existence more likely. BCA financial support for printing and postage would also provide a timely boost for our WSBF project. To my way of thinking, the most important thing to focus on is that there are a handful of, quote, converts to Shin Buddhism around this country who have a strong faith in and commitment to the true teaching of Jodo Shinshu. What an amazing thing it is that I and others like me have come to a deep and abiding appreciation of Amida's compassion and wisdom without the benefit and support of a local temple. But how many more are there out in the hinterlands of America and elsewhere in the West who could relate to the vow and the name if only they had the good fortune to be exposed? I recently received a letter from Daniel of San Antonio, Texas, who nicely summed up the case for the need for a YSBF-type organization. He says, quote, "There may be more Shin Buddhists around than anyone realizes. Shin does not lend itself to boasting or loud proclamations from the housetops. Nevertheless, once a seeker realizes in his own life what Shinran was talking about, everything else but Shin just falls away." Close quote. Before closing my remarks to you today, I wish to communicate my appreciation to Bishop Yamaoka for allowing me the honor of having an opportunity to address this esteemed group of BCA representatives. My thanks also go to each of you for taking the time to listen to my remarks. I wish, most of all, to express my sense of sincere and heartfelt gratitude to Reverend Tsuji for the personal support and guidance which he has generously provided to me, as well as for his untiring bodhisattva-like Buddhist outreach efforts in the eastern United States of America. May Amida help each of us establish and sustain the determination to creatively and energetically pursue every possible avenue for spreading the comfort of the Buddha Dharma throughout this Saha world. May we experience the kind of devotion reflected in this statement by Carlo of West Quincy, Massachusetts, who says, quote, "Every day, morning, afternoon, and evening, I sit on a cushion in front of my home altar, with my painting of Amida Buddha as the main object of worship, and with beautiful pictures of Shin saints. My life is Amida's vow. I start with true Shinjin and share Gasho with others through Namu Amida Butsu. This is where my heart is." Close quote. Shinran sacrificed to make the teachings known to me, John. May I now unselfishly and diligently find ways to share the wonder of the vow and name with others. I will now close with an excerpt from a liturgy developed for the WSBF membership by Jim of Springfield, Missouri. This liturgy is called, quote, "The Expression of Faith." The portion I have chosen to share goes like this, quote, "Through the merits freely given to me from Amida, may I quickly take birth in the Pure Land and return to this world to lead every being into perfect nirvana. The Dharma is deep and lovely. I now have a chance to see it, to study it, and to practice it. I vow to realize in this life its true meaning. In this age of Buddhism's rebirth, Amida's vow is as strong as ever. From beginningless time, Namu Amida Butsu thunders. But only now have I heard it, and only now do I have the faith to say it. As this faith eternally awakens, I shall chant Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu." Close quote.